Hi everyone, this tutorial is brought to you by Mode Online. We offer a number of resources that help support those training in the artistic makeup industry. We hope that you enjoy this tutorial and learn new tips and tricks from our guest makeup artists. This video is in collaboration with SFX by Soph, who has provided the prosthetic for today's tutorial. In today's tutorial, we will be creating a healing scar using a silicone prosthetic. If you want to know how to create this, keep watching. To create this look, you're going to need a number of products and materials. So starting from the left, I'm going to be using Talisa's Brisk, but you just need some form of astringent to remove any makeup or excess oil before applying the prosthetic. I'll be using Prosthetic to adhere the prosthetic to the skin. IPA will be used to melt the cap plastic edges so that it blends into the skin very nicely. Today I'm going to be using Skin Illustrator's alcohol activated paints. I highly recommend these. They can be a bit pricey, but the finish is always very good on them. And then you're also going to need cotton buds, pads and a mixture of angled, flat and round brushes. Of course, you're going to need your silicone prosthetic, so today I'm going to be using a piece from SFX by Soph. All prosthetics are hand sculpted and ran in-house, making the quality second to none. So now that you've got your products and equipment, let's get on with the video. So firstly, I'm going to make sure that the skin is clear of any excess oil by applying Talisa's Brisk onto the face, focusing on the areas where the prosthetic will be applied. You could also use IPA to do this, but it is harsher on the skin, so you need to be wary of this. So now I'm taking the prosthetic and figuring out where it best sits on the model. You need to ensure that it doesn't restrict the facial movements once it's stuck on. I also recommend using reference images to help with the placement and the colouring. With a cotton bud, I applied a thin layer of Prosaids to the back of the prosthetic, and you can also apply Prosaid to the face for double bonding. Now it's important that the Prosaid is clear before applying to the skin. When the Prosaid is white, it isn't sticky. Slightly stretch the prosthetic when you apply it to the skin, and this will help to prevent wrinkles in the cap plastic. So I use a large dense brush to press the prosthetic onto the skin, and just to make sure that it's lying flat and you're ironing out all of the little wrinkles. And then from here you might see areas that perhaps need a bit more Prosaid, they're not quite sticking. So just fold back the prosthetic and apply with a cotton bud, but again ensure that the Prosaid is clear before pressing down on the skin. If you press it down when it's still white, it won't dry and you'll see the white coming through the prosthetic, which will mean more of a colouring job. It's also important to note that you really need to keep your model cool. Any sweating on the skin could reactivate the Prosaid, so you can use a product called Sweat Stop when prepping the skin if you know that the model/actor might be working in a hot climate, because when we say reactivate the Prosaid, it means that the prosthetic will start to come away from the skin and start to peel off. Once I'm happy with how the prosthetic is sitting on the skin, you are ready to blend the edges. So what we mean by this is melting the cap plastic with IPA so that the prosthetic blends seamlessly into the skin. So Soph has ensured that the silicone is thoroughly removed from the edges so that the cap plastic just melts away so beautifully. Using a flat brush with a small amount of IPA, I'm using the brush like a knife by slicing away the cap plastic. You want to refrain from rubbing, as this can cause texture on the skin, which will be a quick giveaway that a prosthetic has been used. You want to continue to do this around the perimeter of the prosthetic. I removed the glue gun flashing to remove the weight. An important tip is to not blend the edges too close to the sculpt, as you will begin to reveal the glue. Now, if you want to make your prosthetic look very realistic, you need to think about the finish of the skin. So we're creating a healing scar, so it won't have a shine to it necessarily. So I'm going to take a small amount of Max Anti-Shine on a flat brush to mattify the prosthetic. I leave some areas clear so that it has a natural sheen coming through the skin as well. Just to note, I mixed these colours after the application just to show you what I used. I recommend that you adapt this to your model's skin tone and mix as you go. For my base colour, I'm mixing Rice Paper and Natural 1. Then I'm mixing Leo 2 with Natural 2. And finally Cedar Brown with Coral Adjuster. Spraying IPA into the alcohol activated paints, I'm first creating a light warm tone to match the lighter parts of my model's skin. I'm then warming this up by creating a yellowy brown to match the model's warm undertone. And then finally making a maroony red to show the details of the scar and soreness of the skin as it heals. I added a small amount of Rose Adjuster to this as well. To colour the prosthetic, I'm using a large rounded brush to apply the paint and a small blending brush to pat out the colour. I find that this helps to create a wash of colour on the skin because the skin isn't just one colour, so you want to avoid an opaque application. I highly recommend working from real life reference pictures when painting the prosthetic. And as you can see with that first lighter colour, I'm being quite sporadic with my application to avoid it looking too uniform. With the yellowy brown shade, I'm using that to just warm up the skin a little bit, and I'm following the exact same method that I used to apply the lighter base colour. To add details into the scar, I used alcohol paints to create a maroony red shade. I mixed with a lot of IPA to create a watercolour kind of effect, and this means that this will appear a lot sheerer on the skin. So using a fine rounded brush, I held it at the top of the prosthetic and allowed gravity to let it flow into all of the details, and I made some areas slightly darker so that it didn't appear too uniform. At this point, I recommend stepping back and looking at the colouring from a distance and then coming in close up. You may find that some areas need more colour, you might have to remove a bit using IPA in certain areas. Just spend this time fine tuning. And here we have it. In this quick video, you've learnt how to apply a silicone prosthetic and do some basic colouring. I hope you have a lot of fun practicing in the future.